Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show.
You know, one of the greatest things when I met William Esser, I saw him several times. I once asked him how often he fasts. He goes, I don't have to fast. I said, why? He goes, because I don't overeat.
Yeah.
So that's great. Speaking of overeating, I have a new book coming out called The Daylight Diet, which talks about how we're designed to eat when it's light outside, and when it's dark outside, it's not really, digestion's not really working well, and it's not ideally the best time to eat. Do you have any opinion about that? One way
Well,
or
I
another?
think that we're designed we are not nocturnal creatures by design, and we're designed when it gets dark to get very quiet and to go to sleep, and when it gets light in the morning to wake up. And there's a reason when you think about it from a bioevolutionary standpoint. The animals that are awake at night are carnivores. They're the ones that want to make us supper. And so in our history, those of us that got very quiet at night, climbed into the cave and didn't move around too much, lived to reproduce. And if you were very active at night, I think that you'd be in probably deep trouble pretty quickly in the world of our ancient ancestors. So I think it makes sense that we're biologically designed to sleep when it's dark and awake when it's light. The advent of artificial lights and artificial stimulation results in many complications. As far as the inability to digest food when it is dark, I think that there's a spectrum of capacities. And although it may very well be true that digestive capacities are probably enhanced during daylight hours compared to nighttime hours, I think clearly people are capable of digesting food at any time. Sure. It's a question of whether it's most beneficial consuming your calories during the time when you're supposed to be awake.
Sure. And then I have another book called Health According to the Scriptures, which talks about health from a biblical standpoint.
Yes.
And they talk a lot about fasting in the Bible.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Moses, David, Elijah, and Jesus all fasted for as long as 40 days. I think Moses was said to have fasted for 3 times for extended periods of time. I think that clearly there's numerous references in all major religious tracts to the use of fasting both for spiritual as well as for health benefits.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what about you personally? Do you fast often?
I do. I don't like fasting. I try to live as healthily as I can to minimize the need for fasting, but pretty much once a year I take time out and undergo this process. The thing I don't like about fasting particularly is you have to rest and take it easy, and that I really don't like to have to do that if I don't need to.
Sure. And then can you briefly give maybe in 1 minute here, I know it's not a lot of time, you're what you would consider somebody a healthy, I know it's an individual thing, but what would you consider a healthy diet for the average person?
Well, I think the average person needs to eat a diet that's a vegan diet, that's free of meat, fish, fowl, eggs, and dairy products. We also recommend avoiding the dietary pleasure traps, which is oil, flour, sugar, and of course dairy again. So if a diet's free of meat, fish, fowl, eggs, dairy products, oil, salt, and sugar, I think you're well on your way to moving in the direction of what you need to avoid. And what you need to include are the whole natural foods, so fruits, vegetables, and the variable addition of grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, depending on the digestive capacities of the individual. The bulk of the diet by volume, from our viewpoint, would be raw fruits and vegetables with enough complex carbohydrates so you don't get too skinny.
And the grains, the sprouted grains, millet, quinoa, and so on, you think...
We don't use the glutinous grains here particularly. We don't use bread or bread products or any of this kind of thing, but we do use all of the different varieties of whole grain rice, millet, quinoa, and some of these other what we would consider well-digested grains. We also use lots of sprouts and raw nuts and seeds.
Do you ever use any supplements like digestive enzymes or probiotics or anything?
I think on a routine basis we try to avoid the use of pills and potions. There's a couple of exceptions. Number one, for our vegan patients, which is hopefully becoming the majority of our patient base, we do recommend supplemental B12. We believe that B12 does become depleted over enough time because of the lack of exposure to bacterial contamination, in essence, in our hyperhygienic modern world. So vitamin B12 supplementation we do believe is valid and appropriate. And we do test patients routinely for vitamin D levels. And if you're getting enough sun, most people will maintain adequate vitamin D levels above 15 nanograms per milliliter. If vitamin D levels are low, we will try to increase sun exposure, sunlamp exposure. If it doesn't come up adequately because a person has conversion problems, then we recommend supplementation of vitamin D until those levels are in fact acceptable. Now, therapeutically, there are people that have various problems, and sometimes supplemental nutrition is, just as medications are, sometimes a necessary intervention, and we will use a variety of integrative medical approaches for a given patient. But these are the exceptions, not the rule, and they're usually tools to help a person transition to getting healthy enough so that the need for these things can be eliminated.
Sure, and I know you reference a vegan diet and that's what you prefer, but if somebody wanted to do, not eat animals but animal products, do you see a big difference between the drugged up milk in the store or like raw goat's milk?
Well, I think there is a difference between organically grown animal-based products and healthier products because there's a little bit less of the contamination. But the problem is, even the healthiest animal product still has some inherent problems, particularly in the modern world. Excess fat and protein in general, and excess animal fat and protein in particular, are probably some of the most antagonistic components that people get exposed to. I think that they're associated with a wide variety of health compromises. And I understand the appeal to people for eating animal products. I think it's kind of like the appeal for people that jump out of an airplane with a parachute. It makes things very exciting because they don't know, will the parachute open? Are they going to crash and smash on the ground, or will they live? If they happen to jump out, they happen to survive, they feel more alive because somehow they've challenged themselves. And with animal products, you never know what's going to happen. Is that the animal that's going to be bacterial contaminated, give you diarrhea? Or worse, is it going to have prions that's going to melt your brain from mad cow disease? Is it going to have the mercury contamination that pushes you over the load and causes cognitive changes? So they take the sentient creatures, they raise them all their life, sometimes in horrific conditions. They kill them and eat them, and then they feel a certain sense of excitement because they managed to survive if they manage to get through it. So I understand that kind of thinking, but I wouldn't recommend it. I think that the less animal foods that you eat, the better off your health is going to be in general. And the fact is, yes, people can eat small amounts of animal and still maintain a high level of health if they happen to get lucky and that particular animal food isn't particularly contaminated. But I don't see any point in taking the risk. Whether it's morally, ethically, the right thing to do is to adopt a plant-based vegan diet.
Sure, and there's a lot of people in the raw food community now promoting things that I don't consider healthy, but some people do. They're called superfoods, but I don't think they're superfoods.
Well, they're super from an economic standpoint. They make a lot of money for a lot of people.
Exactly. One of them is this raw chocolate. I think it's a joke, but what's your opinion about that?
Well, I'm not a big advocate of superfoods. What I'm an advocate of is whole natural foods, fruits and vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, eaten with moderation within the capacities of the individual. And the idea that if you buy something from very far away or for very high amounts of money, it's going to somehow dramatically enhance your health or well-being, I think is a little bit delusional, and it's a distraction. And it's a distraction from the fact that health results from healthful living. And so what we should be focusing on is those basic issues, not trying to make up for bad habits with some pill, potion, powder, or concentrated supplement.
Great. Give us your website and tell us how people can contact you and so on.
They can go to our website at healthpromoting.com.
Healthpromoting.com.
Or they can call our clinic directly at 707-586-5555.
707-586
5555.
We finally got a guest who speaks as fast as me, so that's wonderful. And so here's what I ask all my viewers: a question of the day. So I'll leave it up to you. What question? What's the question of the day?
The question of the day is: where do vegetarians get most of their protein from?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, the question of the day: where do vegetarians get most of their protein from? Just post the video, the answer under this video. Okay, here's the answer to the question of the day for those of you that do not know the answer.
When people ask you where to get your protein from, you can honestly tell them it's from human flesh. Because human beings recycle through digestive enzyme, gut epithelial lining, and other material. The majority of the protein that's utilized in any one day is actually recycled human flesh. So, in essence, you are a cannibal.
Wonderful. So you're calling all vegans out there cannibals?
I am.
All right, wonderful. But if it works, it works, and that works. Dr. Alan Goldhamer, thank you so much. It's great to have you here. Keep up the great work. Everybody, this is Paul Neeson with the Raw Life Health Show saying have a great day and a great raw life.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show.